on in. Hi, Facebook. Hi, Instagram. YouTube. How's everyone doing? Good morning. Come on in. I'm just going to wait for you guys to trickle in. If this is your first time joining, hello. Tell me where you're tuning in from. Samuel82, good morning. Amor, good morning. Dexter, hello, ma'am. Good morning. Good morning to you, Macedonis. Good morning. Eva, good morning. How is everyone doing? This is your first time tuning in. My name is Aisha Chidole. I'm an immigration lawyer here in Atlanta, but I represent clients all over the United States. With the U.S. immigration, I help with humanitarian-based cases, complex immigration, and family-based immigration cases. If you want to schedule a consult, call my office, 407-995-6567. You can also call 678-325-1037 or send a WhatsApp to 404-333-8751. Hey, Feed Good. Good morning. Best caterer in Atlanta. If you guys are looking for someone to cater your food and is reliable, contact Feed Good Foods, LLC. Best. Okay. So today I kind of want to talk about some of the trends that we are seeing at USCIS interviews and with requests for evidence or notices of intent to deny. And this is especially for people who have had multiple filings, right, and divorces. So what do I mean by that? Let's start with divorces, and especially those of you from Nigeria. I'm going to talk about the people from Nigeria, and I'm going to talk about like people from Jamaica, like two areas where we're seeing a lot of double down. You know, there's nothing worse, let me repeat myself. There's nothing worse than making it through. Let's say you filed a VAWA application and you've made it through the incredibly difficult hump of the incredible difficult process of a VAWA case and get into your I-485 interview. And then things start being revealed, that you didn't disclose to your lawyer, you didn't disclose to anyone else related to a previous marriage. If you know you had a previous marriage, you better get a proper divorce. That's number one. Number two, if you had a previous marriage and you are now remarrying somebody else, you should not be going back to your previous marriage or living in the same household with your previous spouse. I don't care that you have children together. You should not, because automatically you have put yourself into a marriage fraud territory. So we are seeing a lot of people that with really solid cases, but never filed a proper divorce, or the divorce is being questioned again for the second time at the interview stage of the 485, where they're referring their cases back for a review. That's number one. And number two, people who continue, and I'm speaking especially to you guys here that are Nigerian. So you might not like it, but listen, I'm Nigerian and I will call out Nigerians when I see a disturbing trend that affects your case, and it makes it difficult for others and for us to do our jobs when you're not doing what you're meant to do. What do I mean by that? If you are divorced from someone, marriage one, you go marriage two, or whatever the case may be, and you're filing something with marriage two, or you are filing VAWA or marriage-based case, there is no reason why USCIS should come to your house and you're living with marriage one. So stop it, because guys, you are making it difficult for us to do our job, number one. You're making it difficult for other Nigerians who have genuine and authentic cases to get through, because guess what happens? They go through extraordinary hoops and scrutiny because of people that are doing that. So stop it. You guys don't see me come here annoyed all the time, but it is getting ridiculous. It is getting ridiculous. The second group of people that we're seeing scrutiny, actually, let me go back. I'm still doing, before I get into Jamaicans, let me go back to Nigerians. The second thing that we're seeing with the Nigerian applications is when you ask a Nigerian in your consultation, in your application, how many times have you been married? When you're asked a question, how many times you're married, they are not asking you how many times have you been married in the United States? They are asking you, how many times have you been married in your entire life? Meaning, when you're in another country, when you're in America, no matter where you are, how many times have you been married means all marriages together counted. What we're seeing a lot is that people will have otherwise really, really solid cases, like I am talking children, evidence, or whatever it is. And then USCIS will say, oh, when you submitted your tourist visa, you said that you were married, right? And you really weren't, and you don't have a divorce. And then all of a sudden, when we get to that stage, and then USCIS is sending this, then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, attorney, yeah, well, somebody filled out a B1, B2 application for me, and they wrote I was married, but I really wasn't. It is important that you are honest and truthful with your lawyer. Sometimes there are waivers for misrepresentation, depending on what you misrepresented. So what you end up doing is tangling yourself into a web that you cannot get out of. Even me cannot turn water into wine. Like, I consider myself to be a really, really good lawyer, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I know I'm a really good lawyer, but there are just things that it is incredibly difficult to overcome if you're not truthful. You have to tell the truth. If you misrepresented yourself in your B1, B2, which is your tourist visa application, and said you were married, or you had an agent fill out that application for you because you're trying to see if, because they've told you that, if you don't say that, you're not going to get approved for your tourist visa. It is important that you request a waiver from the get-go. If you are eligible for a 601 waiver, you need to request it. You need to tell the truth and show hardship from the beginning. What is not good is for you to get through everything. Where the finish line, I'm like, yeah, of course, everything's slam dunk. And then all of a sudden, oh, there's one thing I didn't mention. And this is now being mentioned on the day of your interview prep, or at USCIS officers being the one telling you that. At that point, you have doubled down on your lie. So how do you show credibility? If you want to show credibility, you come with sincerity and honesty from the beginning and ask for forgiveness. Yes, USCIS laws are tough, but let me tell you what they're tougher on: people who lie and continue to double down. You can be sincere and come with sincerity, remorse, and say, I did this, I wasn't supposed to do it. The same thing applies to people who are unfaithful. I'm sure we have clients here that were telling you they were unfaithful and had other kids, and they wanted to conceal, and I said, no. You are not going to have that child going without a parent on their birth certificate, or not being able to file something later because you don't want to claim the child because you were unfaithful. Instead, tell the truth. Because infidelity does not only happen to people that don't have green cards. People who are US citizens, people British citizens, people Nigerian citizens, Japanese citizens. In every culture, there's infidelity. Infidelity does not mean that your marriage is not legitimate. It means that you were unfaithful. But that doesn't change the fact that you had a legitimate marriage. So it is important that you tell the truth. But there's a difference between being unfaithful and having a child, and you saying, oh, I was unfaithful and I had a child, but I'm with wife one, whereas you're claiming that you're with wife two. Do you see the difference here? So you guys, I am begging you, stop it. It is very, very frustrating. Let me tell you something. There's nothing that gives me joy when I have joy. There's nothing that I don't get any joy from withdrawing from anyone's case, because to me, when people come to me, and the reason why I chose this profession is to get people to the finish line. I want to get people to the finish line, but I cannot fight for you, go to bat for you, go tooth and nail for you if you're lying to me or if you're lying to my staff. I don't want to find out things at the interview or after the interview, because at that point, I will withdraw from your case. Tell the truth. That's it. That's my pedestal for Nigerians. Moving on over to Jamaicans. So you guys are a little lucky because you can overcome this. But what we're seeing, a disturbing trend that we're seeing also with a lot of Jamaicans, there's actually one more thing in Nigerians, but I'll get into that in a second. With Jamaicans, is common law marriage, because in Jamaica, for those that don't know, or those who are aware, there is such a thing as common law marriage in Jamaica, where if you've lived with someone for more than 5 years, just so that you can be able to have assets and property divided together, if something happens, it's considered a common law marriage, even though you were not legally married in, like court or registry or whatever the case may be. But in the United States, it's not considered a valid marriage, right? So what we're seeing with the Jamaicans is that if they filed a B1, B2, right, like a tourist visa and stuff like that, they will sometimes write that they were married. And then the next thing, when we're doing their application, they'll tell us, no, I wasn't married, like, this is my only wife. This is my only husband, and then, I'm like, okay. Or people, because most of the time we're able to get this out of our clients, but most of the time these types of cases come to us when it's already spoiled. What I mean by spoiled is like they've messed up their stuff and they come to us and say, here you go, fix this noise. Here you go, fix this RFE. Again, we do our best, but we cannot always turn water into wine, especially in this administration. So in those cases, thankfully we're able to make the argument that this was in fact true. Like, they were married, right? They were technically married in a common law marriage. And it's easy to misunderstand the question, right, in a B1, B2, because in your country, this is considered a valid marriage, but it's not here in the US, right? And so technically, there's no divorce. You're not going to find any divorce decrees or any divorce certificates because it doesn't exist. And even according to USCIS, they would not recognize this as a valid marriage. So luckily for us, with those, there are ways to overcome that, in like a Jamaican culture or whatever it is. But again, we are seeing this trend where they are using a microscopic review on every marriage that you've ever had, on every marriage you've ever filed. And they are being generous with calling marriages marriage sham, marriage fraud. So again, why am I saying this to you guys? Because a lot of people that I see or come to us for consults that have gotten themselves into the trouble that they're in, they didn't need to be in that. They didn't need to be in that. If they, first of all, use a competent lawyer from day one, and someone who understands their culture, because it's also important. You cannot just hire any lawyer, depending on where you're from. If they don't have experience dealing with people from where you are from culturally, and I'm talking about very nuanced cultural differences. There's certain places, where you're European, whatever it is, marriage certificate is a marriage certificate, a divorce decree is a divorce decree, right? But then there are other places like, i.e. Nigeria, right, where you have so many different cultures. We have engagements, we have traditional marriages, you have knock on the door, you have ibanku. So the person needs to understand, first of all, is this a marriage for USCIS, or is this a cultural engagement that is not a valid marriage? The person needs to understand what and how do you terminate a marriage that is considered valid. And the person needs to understand, what does a proper divorce from this country look like? I cannot stress this enough. You guys know this. I know you guys get upset when I call certain countries out, but let me tell you something. If I cannot help you, if I don't call you out or call it out what the problems are, then how can I help you, or how can you be helped? Just do things the right way, guys. Do things the right way. If you know that you're not sure, go to a lawyer before you get married. before you get married to a US citizen, if you know you had a previous marriage, pause. Make sure your divorce is authentic. It is very difficult to correct it if it's not authentic after you've married, depending on the situation, and sometimes it would depend on if it's a marriage-based case, depending on if it's a vow case. So correct it. Don't rush into a marriage. I understand the pressures of being in the United States, or whatever it is, without papers. Correct it, okay? And 09 Bones, you need to get off this live. You're absolutely disrespectful. You need to stop with those comments. All right, let me take some questions from you guys. Okay, let's see what y'all have. Someone says, what if they divorced you without you knowing it? So I'm not really sure what context that would be. But if you're filing based on you remarrying someone else, then you will know whether you're divorced or not. If you're asking in the context of you're filing with that person, meaning you're maybe, let's say, in a vow situation, and you're in your mind you're married, that's fine, because even if you're divorced, you're still eligible as long as you filed 2 years before. So what you want to find out, is if you were never served, you want to check in the county where the person lives. Or if you have contacts with that person, then you can ask them, okay? Fitness Factor says, over 120 days since vow was received by USCIS, what can we do? I'm not sure what question you're asking. Are you asking about your receipt notice? If you're asking about your receipt notice, this is a good time to reach out to find out if they have if they can send you your receipt notice. One good news, I might have mentioned this last week. I'm not sure if I mentioned this last week, but after checking last week, USCIS, they're being very sneaky. Like, they add in all this new little things without really a big announcement. But now they're not sending mails like a new vow application to Nebraska anymore. This is amazing news, quite frankly, because what does it mean? Now you're going based on the state you live. Same thing with trafficking visas. And what does that mean? It corrects the backlog, because Nebraska was inundated and swamped, right, with applications. And that is why we've had so many people with delayed receipt notices, which is not normal. I've been practicing even during COVID. Like, I would say that this was longer than even during COVID. So now we are seeing 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I know some people said that I was I was lying about it or something, and that's why I posted like a few of those receipts so that you can see that this is the truth. I don't need to lie for nothing. The information is right there for y'all to see. Okay. Okay. What about if they gave to leave? Can they still have hope and get their green card? Are you saying if they have to leave? Like, are you saying like if someone is deported? I'm not sure if that's a question you're asking, but yeah, like being like there's so many ways to become legal in the United States, right? So one decision, I mean, there are certain things that are a permanent bar and bars you permanently where, it affects you permanently. But for a lot of things, there are different inadmissibility waivers that could potentially make you eligible. So, it will depend on the scenario, okay? Someone said, good morning, USCIS sent me a notice for biometrics, and I'm a US citizen filing for my spouse abroad. Yeah, we are kind of seeing that as well. I don't know, I obviously don't want you to tell me your business here or to tell the whole world your business, but sometimes if you as a US citizen have any kind of record, like any kind of arrests before, you might receive a biometrics, so that is possibly what you're getting, but yes, go for the biometrics, okay? Good morning. My husband died and I got it through VAWA. I wanted to file for my citizenship. So what are the requirements to apply for citizenship? In order to apply for US citizen, if you got your green card through VAWA, you have to have been a green card holder for 3 years. That's number one. Number 2, you have to show that in those 3 years you have filed taxes and that you're paying any due or overdue taxes. You want to show that you don't have any crime of moral turpitude. You want to show that in those 3 years, that at least 1.5 of those years you have spent it in the United States. And that if you have any travel outside of the United States for more than 6 months, that you have a logical explanation of how you didn't abandon your residency. And then if you have children that are minors, so think 18 and under, like under 18, that don't live with you, you have to show that you have taken care of those children financially, or that you provide for them financially, whether or not there is a legal custody agreement, a legal child support agreement. You want to show, and this applies to both women. This is very, very important, because a lot of times women think, okay, they're the moms. If they give it to grandmom, they're good, whatever it is. USCIS wants to see that even you as mom is taking care of the child financially, okay? And then the final thing is for men. If you are between the ages of 18 to 25, you want to show that you have registered for selective service. If you have all of those things, that kind of creates an eligibility for you to put in your application. Also understand that you're going to have to pass the English test, right, of written and spoken, and you're also going to have to do the civics exam. A new thing that USCIS is implementing, and this is not, like, I'm not seeing this yet, like, well, okay, let me correct myself. I haven't seen it with my clients. My clients have been good. That said, they are picking, depending on the application, they're reviewing or doing extended review to see what contributions that person has to society, what makes that person a person of good moral character, how are they supporting in their community, in their place of work, in their their neighborhood. So, especially if you've had any kind of infractions before, you want to immediately try to include things there, like affidavits from people that know you're a person of good moral character, just, to add that to just, plump up your application. Okay. Repent now says, good morning. God bless this woman. You see this morning, she got me a 10-year VAWA green card. Yes. My case is something else. My VAWA is with few evidence, but this woman here, she did everything for me. Yes. Congrats. Her and her team are phenomenal. Listen to her. Listen to them. I don't know why this thing keeps giving me all those random filters whenever I type this stuff, but yes. Oh, Brandon, good morning. It says, good morning. I hope all is well on your end. Thank you for your continued great work. Awesome. I love seeing all my old clients here who have their green cards and are doing well. Thank you. What should I expect during citizenship interviews? Green card was through VAWA. I just, kind of answer the question. So, and also another thing to note, I don't know how to remove this filter that just came on here. Another thing to note, guys, if you, if you are married or separated or divorced, your marital status is not only important at the time of the interview, it's also important after they've approved you for the interview. Like, say, if you get divorced before your oath ceremony, you need to notify them that day, because, they're going to need to adjust your application, your naturalization certificate to show divorce. The other thing that I wanted to mention that trips up a lot of people in citizenship applications is this. When they are separated from their spouses, and they file and their file designate what they file in their taxes, like, filing head of household or single when they're not yet eligible to file that. So it is important that if you're still married, I don't generally like to talk about tax advice, but it is important that if you're still married and separated, that you're filing married, filing single, right? Or if you can prove that you've been separated for more than 6 months, meaning you're not living together and you can document that evidence, that's the only time you can move over to like head of household. And you can confirm with your tax professional on this. But I always tell my clients to default to married filing separately until they finalize the divorce, okay? Because that actually can get you denied for lack of good moral character. Someone says, how can one reach you because they have too many scams using your page? That's kind of really sad. That's the thing, when people know you, people try to profit off of your goodwill and create pages that are scams. The way that this is my page is there will always be a blue check mark, a blue check mark on my Instagram page or my Facebook page. Those are my only pages. Okay, so if you don't see a blue check mark there, it is not my page. If all else fails, go to my website and request a call from there, chidowelaw.com. So make sure you are not scammed. Okay. Okay. I have a few more questions, guys. Okay, someone posted my phone number. Yes, 407-995-6567 or 678-325-1037. You can also send a WhatsApp to 404-333-8751. Okay. Okay, let me see. Okay. What of the issue of living separately temporarily due to lease constraints? Well, what is lease constraints? In fact, I actually saw a video of someone last week or a few days ago. This is actually a good topic, saying that if a married couple doesn't live together, they will automatically deny it. So I respectfully disagree. And my clients who got approved last week can tell you that because they got their green card approved. Yes, USCIS wants to see you living together, right? In a marriage-based case. However, if you have a logical reason as to why you're not living together, and your reason is logical to an ordinary person, but you have a lot of evidence to show you have a good faith marriage, you will be approved. Let me give you an example, because I think sometimes that helps to simplify things. What is an example of a logical reason? You came here on an H-2B visa and you're working in Colorado. We all know that an H-2B visa is temporary, right? So meaning that once your project is over, you don't know if you're going to get a new project in that state or if they're going to move you to another city. And then, maybe your spouse lives in another state. And your spouse has a full-time job in that state, right? Or the spouse has maybe a child, in that state. It is illogical to say that the spouse should quit her job, remove her child from school, and move to Colorado if she's living in New York and has stability there, knowing that you have a 6-month temporary job and not knowing whether or not she's going to get a job and uprooting like a child. This is assuming if there's a child, even if there's no child, right? To go there. And then for the person with the H-2B, it makes sense that the person with the H-2B doesn't want to violate their immigration status because this is what they brought them here for. So what do you do in those cases? In those cases, you want to take strong evidence that even though we live in 2 different states, we are in fact a married couple. We see each other all the time. Whether that's by flight, whether that's by road trips, whether that's by an excessive amount of calls, WhatsApp calls, FaceTime calls, WhatsApp video calls, posting each other on Snapchat, on Instagram, like all the things that show you guys are together. Like if you're a couple who's like, oh, we see each other just the last 6 months, we've only seen each other once. In that case, you're basically asking for a denial, like if you live in the same country and you're married, seeing each other only once in 6 months is not normal. Okay. So it's not a death to your green card if you live separately, but it has to make sense. And you have to be able to show the proactive steps that you're taking to eventually live together. If someone says, okay, well, I'm unemployed, and so I just don't want to move. I'm living with my family, and the other person that's the immigrant is somewhere else. That's not a good reason. If you're unemployed, then get yourself over to where your other spouse is, or show that the job applications that you've been applying to every day to try to get there. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times when I see people in trouble, it actually makes me sad, when people come to us when they're in trouble, because I would rather you come to us from the beginning. Because when you come to someone that is competent and knows what they're doing from the beginning, then you get good advice. But when people come to us when they're in trouble, and I look at it and I shake my head and I'm like, man, like this was really easy. All you needed was the right direction, the right advice to do it properly. And now we're in this place, and now your credibility is being questioned. So not only do we need to fix all of this, we also have to fix their opinion of your marriage. You know what I mean? I am so out of time. I am so sorry that I cannot answer every question. If I didn't get to your question, definitely schedule a consultation. If you're my client that is asking a question here, I don't answer questions for clients on here. Send an email, or in my case, or schedule a call. We don't want to talk about any confidential cases on here, but send an email on your client portal, or send me an email, and I'll be happy to address you. Have a good day, guys, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.